good afternoon to you all and a warm welcome to the Citizens Chat Show this Friday. My name is Judith Atim, and it's always a pleasure to have you join us. And if you haven't already, do subscribe to our channel and also drop us a comment. We do read all your comments and we take all your feedback and criticisms in very good faith. Today we are talking about the NRM's plans to go to court over the Kawempe North by-election and the issue of the supplementary budgets. And as you can see, it's a full house today. Everyone is on board, and it shows that we're going to have a very interesting conversation. I'll start by introducing my panelists on my immediate left. Dr. Robert Ojambo, head of the History Department at Kyambogo University. Good afternoon, Doctor, and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, thank you.
Also, we have with us Dr. Bireete, Executive Director, Center for Constitutional Governance. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, and good afternoon, viewers.
Honourable George Odongo, member of the East African Legislative Assembly. Good afternoon, Honourable.
Good afternoon, thank you so much.
Welcome to the show. UPC man, Mr. Joseph Ochieno, political commentator and UPC ideologue. Always a pleasure to have you on the show, Joseph.
Very good to be here. Yes, red tie not there, but black is there, one of our colors.
Last
But you're
but not...
fantastically dressed.
Thank you. I knew you'd say that. I appreciate the compliment. Last but not least, retired Major Awich Pollar, who has been missing from this show for quite some time, but he'll tell us why.
Why?
Very interesting developments on his side. Major, good to have you back on the show.
Thank you. Good evening to our viewers.
And could you tell us what has transpired? We saw something, a photo of you in royal garbs, and we were wondering. We're actually, first of all, very happy for such a big, I don't know what to say. I'm even lost for words. But I want to say congratulations. But you'll tell us just a little bit of what has happened, what your status now is.
Thank you once again. I like to join my colleagues in appreciating not only you, but my Barantare.
They're fantastic.
You are fantastically dressed, but I appreciate you
Thank you.
more because for the Barantare, I know. So thank you so much. You make life sweeter. You color up our life. Now, about my enthronement, I was enthroned as my clan leader. Is one of the biggest clan in Lao. It occupies nearly 2 districts, so Ture and Agago, because it flows over. It occupies the 2 districts. And ideally in Lao culture, we are supposed to have one supreme leader. We could call him the paramount chief, although lately we have had contentions as to who a legitimate one is, to the effect that we even have a court matter. There's a main suit to be disposed of to ascertain who. But nevertheless, by the time colonialists came, we had not yet reached kingdom. So the loose society is almost a chiefdom of its own, because we had not yet developed to a feudal stage. So even the chiefdom that we have, the chief that I said is in court, is actually an agreement between the different sub-kings, if I could say, chiefdoms that we have, and I'm one of them. And we have a big community. We are cattle keepers, but for some time, the cattle raiders from Karamojo disorganized us. Actually, for us, we were raided in Obote's regime. And that is why the perception in the eastern part of that country is different from the west. Because for us, we are raided in Obote, so we knew Karamojong. But those who are raided during Museveni think it is Museveni. But nevertheless, it's a big community of cattle keepers, and we are fairly educated. When education came, we have many doctors, lawyers, professionals, and it is known that our clan was the first to own a public bus in Lango. Somehow because of the cows.
Bus?
Yes, because of the cows, they did what you could call cow raising, not fundraising though, but it became a fundraising, and they bought public means of transport. And also, it is believed that we are the first to use ox plow in Lango when the ox plow was introduced. So we're a
So
big community, we are happy. It's so big, I always tease my subjects that where do they marry from? Because the whole area is definitely one clan. They said for us, you have to go very far towards their place in Electoral, where you can get a wife. Otherwise, between Utuka and Agago, you nearly have nobody to marry because it's nearly the same community. So I was enthroned and I am the leader, and it was good. People are happy. We just hope that we can give cohesion to our people. And I also think by that way, I would also have a voice in the bigger land thing, which is causing controversy, and it ends up a traditional thing and up in court. And to that effect, in my enthronement, I wrote 2 letters to both of them, to the contending chiefs. I told them that I'm going to have this function, but bear with me, I'm not inviting you because I don't want to enter into controversies now. And please, by copy of this letter, note that I've also written to your friend. And the other letter, I did the same. So I let them stay away. We did our things, and it was successful. And in the end, I know I had, because if I had invited one, there would be counter accusation.
You're taking sides.
So I wrote to them formally and told them that I'm not inviting any of you. So let me do our things. And it was quite nice, and with many people and top government officials and ordinary people.
Wow.
And religious.
Thank you.
Which clan is that?
The clan is called Bahokarwok.
Congratulations. We are happy to associate with Royalt on this show.
Thank you. And we missed you so dearly, and now we're very happy that you were Antares here. Very happy.
The beauty with the clan things. Each clan thinks they are the best.
Yeah.
When you listen to Oyima, they say, we are the first, we are the first. When you listen to the other one, they say
yes, I missed my brother Antares so much, but I'm here.
Okay, good to have you. So now let's just dive into our discussion for today. Of course, like I said earlier, we're focusing on the NRM's plans to go to court over the Kawempe North by-election. And later, we shall also be talking about the supplementary budgets. How do we get our priorities right as a country? So in the last couple of weeks, you've been following the show, and we've mainly focused on the Kawempe North by-election. And as you already know, the NUP candidate, Elias Nalukola, was declared winner, despite going through one of the most brutal and highly militarized electoral process that we have witnessed as a country in recent years. Nalukola beat NRM's Farida Nambi by a margin of about 8,000 votes, and this has not been received well by the ruling party, the NRM. And on Friday, while the NUP camp was celebrating the win, the NRM camp, specifically the Central Executive Committee, held their caucus, and they made a number of resolutions, which I'll just read, 3 resolutions to be precise, that the party totally rejects the results of the Kawempe North constituency that was declared by the Electoral Commission. The second resolution was that the party calls upon the government to carry out a forensic audit to bring all the culprits who participated and messed up the election to book as soon as possible. And the third resolution was that the party instructs its lawyers to immediately challenge the results of the by-election in courts of law. Major, again, we're starting with you. Were you present in that meeting? And could you just give us a quick overview of the conversations that took place?
To be precise, I wasn't in that SEC meeting because I've been in the north in Gulu for 3 weeks. I've been in Gulu for 2 reasons. One, I have been finalizing on our digitalization of the party registry. I was in charge for 2 regions, that is Lao and Acholi, but I was always based in Gulu. I just come to Lira. So the center we had in Gulu was Gulu High School, where we had brought all the hard books for the register for the 9 districts of Acholi. While in Lira, in Boroboro, Canon Lawrence, we had all the hard register for the 10 districts of Lango. So I was managing the 2, and we managed to do it. But at the same time, actually, why I was based there because of the other factor is that I was part of the negotiating team with 11 MPs of Acholi who had wanted to work with NRM, from non-NRM MPs, FDC, DP, and independents, that wanted to cross over and work with us. So I'd been nominated in a small team to be on the government delegation to negotiate. So it kept me really in Acholi. Now, on this day of this SEC, I actually missed 2 SECs and 2 caucuses in those 2 times. I missed 2 SECs and 2 caucuses in the meeting during my being there. So I wasn't there, but I know what transpired. So what transpired is that the resolution is as you read. You see, when we went for this election as a party, overall we wanted to ensure that there's democratic procedures in election. That is the minimum we wanted. About winning, yes, we were trying our best. It was a fishing expedition. We knew each election is taken by its own circumstances. NUP had won during the wave, but we also knew government had done so much, and we have done mobilization. So we thought this time we would also win, and we thought the rule of the game would be fine. So when we went in the election, we realized in the middle that there was violence, and which could be manifested like from the state. And you could hear voices from the Tangadoy and others, and we were wondering, why all this? Who is doing it? Who is the deploying officer? We prima facie thought the violence was working against us, and we felt concerned. But it continued, and it continued. Now, when we finally went for the polls, we had thought the polls would go on well, and we went to the conclusion. You could see that our cadres who were there, Honourable Seninde and others, even after the voting, congratulated the winners. We thought it was all done, we had lost, but it's okay, fine. We thought it would be a demonstration for the democratic process ushered in by the movement. But later on, we realized that our chairman, who is the president, has a wider view. He has a wider network of intelligence, so he gets information more than us in the theater. And therefore, notwithstanding our greetings and congratulating our people, we realize that the chairman is privy to a much deeper and wider information. So the chairman came to a conclusion that there was irregularities according to his intelligence. And he strongly warned not only opposition, but even NRM. He said, if ever you are involved in rigging, that is bad. And therefore, he called for the audit, which you could call investigation. And this investigation is not only targeting NUP, it's targeting whoever had a malpractice. So he's saying that this is what took me to the bush. It can't happen when I'm here. So it doesn't matter whether you're NRM or NUP, as long as you're involved, it should. So according to the current status, it is 2 ways. You could look for it from a criminal aspect, which would interest the DPP, but still, if you look at it from the civil aspect, it would interest the party. And that is when the party feels aggrieved. The record that he has is that 50 polling stations were destroyed and never counted. And he feels that not only is the destruction of the ballot boxes bad enough and uncouth, but also it affects the counting and the winning. So, in a nutshell, therefore, we have the investigation, which, as I said, has the criminal aspect, but also the civil aspect. So, on the party side, the instruction right now is that the party should show the regularities, and they show the only place, the only neutral, the only place that need an arbiter to put all these things and for somebody to decide is the court. And therefore, we also call upon our colleagues that if we, the ruling party NRM, could follow the election until the declaration and our option is going to court, we call on our colleagues also to go to courts in future when they don't seem to agree with it. But some people don't want to court, they believe it should be anarchy. That is not the way to go. If that was the way to go as a ruling party, we could even have commanded the person declaring results. The Electoral Commission could have taken him hostage and ordered him to declare. But we did not want to abuse state authority and state power. We wanted the declaration to go as it happened, and then we have the avenue of the courts of law. And that is why the chairman said it, he did it like that. Of course, the chairman was monitoring this thing minute by minute. He had the power even to say, declare so and so, but we normally don't abuse that state authority. We follow democratic principles, and that is why the chairman has said we go to court. My colleague, Mr. Barata, the Director of Legal Affairs, we sit together. He's very busy assembling us information, because this will need affidavits from witnesses, because courts rely on sworn statements. So those sworn statements are what we call a sworn statement of truth, is the affidavit. Like you go to criminal case, you rely on statements. In civil matters, you rely on the sworn statement of truth, which is affidavit. So my learned brother, Barata, is doing it. If he needs my help, I will do that. I hope you know I'm an advocate with a practicing certificate of 2025. You may think I'm around and about, no. But so far now, it's my colleague, the Director Legal, doing it. He has not yet asked for reinforcement. But if he asks for reinforcement, I'll cross over from external to legal and help him.
Thank you, Major. This is a very good background. And I think it now opens the floor for also reactions from your colleagues. I'll start with Sarah, who I think could not wait for you to finish so that she could actually...
Well, I'm happy for one thing, that finally government will be suing itself. And I can't wait for this petition to be filed. I will try to apply for AMCAS as a friend of court to provide information on elections, which is one of the areas that we work on, both at national, region, and international levels. So I really can't wait for government to sue itself.
No, it is
Why do I
NRM.
say so?
It is
Yeah,
NRM.
my statement is intentional. Why do I say so, that the government will be suing itself? I'm glad that Awich has told us that the president was monitoring Kawempe elections minute by minute. And just to refresh the minds of viewers, what transpired in Kawempe? Anarchy. Anarchy. So I'm here wondering, what was in the president's mind to follow the anarchy in Kawempe, and then he does not act as a head of state. He does not stop the mayhem caused by the army under the command of his son. He does not stop the brutality vested on opposition supporters and journalists. And he's there just bothered about the loss of an NRM candidate. This is really a betrayal of a nation of the highest order. You have people brutalized right on nomination day. Narukola as a candidate for NUP, you know, brutalized on nomination day, shot stone. 2 journalists were admitted at the end of that nomination for brutal attacks by JAT. 2 journalists were admitted. About 10 NUP supporters were admitted. Women defaced. The other woman, so some woman has a lot of bandages on the face, completely defaced. The other woman is in crutches. And you have a president saying, I was monitoring day by day and I have my own research. So why couldn't he stop the suffering of these people? Then the next few days, you had NUP disrupted at a very opportune almost. Claims of procession. But on the other hand, you have an NRM candidate, open procession with even a tractor in her, one of her processions. You would think that maybe it's a rural, constituency in Agago and she's going to nominate a tractor. But this is Kawempe. Urban plus. There is no land that needs farming of a tractor. The double standards in that election. the brutal or excessive use of force, police. The next day, you see the DPS of Wandegea wrestling with journalists. He's still in office, comfortable, and maybe shamelessly he will be soon promoted. So when you hear a head of state saying, I've been monitoring, I have my own research, as a citizen, I feel the greatest betrayal of the highest order. I was under the comfort of saying, you know, maybe given his age, he was resting, or he doesn't follow these days daily. I really feel highest level of betrayal. By the end of voting day, about 20 journalists were admitted. They've just recorded statements at the Human Rights Commission. In that blue letter of the president, where he's addressing Bazkul, I'm glad that given my age, I hope he doesn't consider some of us Bazkul. Because that patronizing of a nation, first of all, is meant to take away responsibility of a head of state. He wants to be seen as a grandfather. A grandfather has different obligations altogether. And at the age of 75 and above, their main duty is to play with the children. They don't have major, responsibilities of planning for families. The grandchildren are there just to keep them busy running around so that they can exercise without knowing. So when you start addressing a nation, you have state obligations as a CEO of the nation. Bazkul this, Bazkul that. I really don't like it. He has a duty to perform as a head of state. He doesn't have a duty of running around with the grandchildren just to exercise and keep his mind busy. He has serious work to do. So then he's saying, dear Bazukulu, it has come to my attention, ballot stuffing. And who was caught on camera doing ballot stuffing? RDC Kawe. A full video in a white cape where is ballot stuffing around a mosque. He majestically moves and puts all of it in a video. Puts all the pre-ticked ballots, bundles, himself. And so many other people maybe who were not captured. Because the decision to chase away journalists was to make sure that these crimes are not captured. But I'm glad some citizens were brave to use their phones, citizen journalism. So what is the complaint of NRM? In my view, just to conclude, I think the genuine complaint of NRM would be that how dare you not declare us winners? After all this trouble and mayhem we caused it, how dare you not declare us winners? I think that's their complaint.
Judge.
Thank you, Judith. First of all, I do not have sufficient bandwidth to deal with the Kawempe question, because we have really, it's almost like 3 weeks now we have been talking about Kawempe. So everything that I want to talk about Kawempe, probably I have spoken. And I want to address myself specifically to the issue of court. I was actually expecting that Sarah would be very happy that we are in court.
I said so.
Because
you are planning, you haven't yet gone.
Okay.
I said that I can't wait.
Yeah, but you see, court provides us with an opportunity to provide evidence. And this evidence is two-way. There is going to be evidence coming from the NRM side, but also there's going to be evidence from the defense side. So it is going to be an opportunity for us actually to lay bare what happened during that election. What Major said here, an audit. So we should be happy actually that NRM has gone to court to challenge the outcome of that election, and then use it as an opportunity for us to actually provide that necessary evidence and use the records of court. Use the records of court when court pronounces itself to polish our electoral process than if we just remain silent about it. So for me, it is a very good opportunity that we have gone to court. But secondly, the president did not say we are going to court because we needed to win that election. the president, when he addressed caucus that I was in, said the elections in Kawempe fell short of an elections environment that is free and fair for everybody to exercise their right. So that even if an NRM candidate lost, he lost in an environment that was free and fair. If the NUP candidate won, he won in an environment that is free and fair. So the whole idea of going to court is basically to be able for us to determine where were the gaps in these elections and what can we do about it. Because in his own address, he said, I have also heard that there was high-handedness of the military. What is the military doing in Kawempe instead of defending our territory? So some of those questions are going to be, you know,
Very interesting.
yeah, some of those
That's
issues.
good.
You get it? So some of those issues are going to come out in court. And I thought those were some of the issues that we were concerned about, even here on this show. We said, why is there over-militarization of a civilian exercise and elections? So for me, I am happy that the president, in his wisdom, decided to say, let us go to court, so that court, as an independent organ, can then interrogate both sides. And then we are able to tell our stories. And then those stories will become part and parcel of the lessons of these elections that we can then use for polishing the other elections. So I was really expecting that we should be celebrating the fact that an opportunity has been granted to the public to come and say, oh, you know, RDC Kabuye was here. This is the video, and this is him. Call him, he comes, testifies. So and so was seen here, you know. There was ballot stuffing, or the military was seen in this place, and we show that this is actually what happened. And then we use it as an avenue to polish the election. So I am happy that we have taken that bold step.
Thank you, Jude. Just out of curiosity, other than the Electoral Commission, who are the other parties that you hope would be added to the suit?
Well, I have not yet seen the draft yet. I think the council and the team of lawyers will have to see the interested parties. Okay. I really don't know whether there will be electoral commission, will be the winning candidate brought on board, or whichever person. No, I can't tell at this time. They will be determined by the affidavit that is shown, because the evidence you rely on is in those who saw it, the sworn statement of truth.
Okay. Let me come to you, Dr. Ojambo, before I give mic to Joseph.
You know, Judith, it is very depressing sometimes to discuss these things. Many people listening to us may think we are jokers. We are either acting a movie or trying to joke around with state matters. In this country, we have a head of state, and the head of state is the fountain of honor, who is supposed to run the affairs of the country. He's even the commander-in-chief. And I was shocked when my honorable colleague was asking that the president was wondering, how did the military go into elections? It is very depressing that the commander-in-chief did not know that soldiers were there caning people for over a month. He's wondering, he's asking, I would want to find out. He's now asking who, because he's the final person up there. His son is even promoting one of them who was recorded there beating people and running around with a motorcycle. He's saying this is a candidate for promotion. And these days he has been given powers to promote. And then the president is asking. Terrible. Of course, it is true that when there is a conflict, court would have been the right place to go. But this would also only appease somebody who is hearing it for the first time. In this country, court is one of the most ridiculous places that we have gone in times of election. The decisions which they have taken have caused us a lot of trouble. For example, I remember after the 2021 elections, Honourable Otto went to court and his petition was successful. He succeeded in Gulu High Court and there was an appeal. Up to today, we have not heard about that appeal. It is 1 year to the end of the term. 1 year to the end of the term. And yet we have not heard those appeals. And several of them, it's not only Honourable Odongo. There are so many in the court of jurisdiction there, which have not been heard. Even in the last election, 2020,
21?
no, the 2020, the 2016, there were appeals which the terms ended without them being heard and disposed of. Now I am wondering, this is 6 months, because this term is supposed to take only 6 months. Nalukola, if he is allowed to swear in, is about 6 to 10 months, and he will be out of parliament. So whoever is happy, maybe they just want it for record purposes, to see the gymnastics in the court, as my colleague was talking about there. But it is, he called it a fishing expedition. And I hope you were alive to your words. Say fishing expedition. Just
Yes,
go in.
I mean, we were not sure of winning, but we had to engage.
Yeah, even this one going to court is a fishing expedition.
Those are your words.
It's a terrible fishing expedition. But that is not the issue. The issue is that I think the president does not take citizens of Uganda serious. For a very long time, I've come to conclude this, that he looks at us as some zombies, people who don't understand. So we have only one person who understands the running of this country, and the rest of us are either just there. We are like people traveling during those days when they were taking slaves to the coast of East Africa to be sold at, East Africa to be sold at Bagamoyo or Dar es Salaam or Tanga or Kilwa, these places where they were selling slaves. So much so that even children saw what was happening in Kawempe. When you now go in groups of children, underage, below 18, people who are supposed to be guided, and they are really seeing the problem. They know the problem that was in Kawempe. The problem in Kawempe was in three folds. One, a weak electoral commission. And we discussed this one here. An electoral commission that is not up to the duties of what it's supposed to do. Number two, deployment of people who are not supposed to be there. The military, to be specific, JAT, they were not supposed to be there. These people are supposed to fight terrorism, they're supposed to be fighting criminals and other things. And they were, for the last 2 weeks, very busy there, commanded by the commander of armed forces there. And number three, politicians who were seeking cheap popularity in that place. And on both sides, we had the prime minister. All that the prime minister was doing there was to threaten people. In fact, she said, and I don't know whether she's going to detract some of these statements, hook or crook, they are going to win that election.
Yeah.
And for some of you who take serious government, when a prime minister says that, it's not a joking matter. It is a joking matter when Ojambo says it. But this is the leader of government business. And nobody wants to complain about that. The president is not concerned. Is he hullabalooing to us how there was an electoral fraud when his prime minister was making statements which are not supposed to be made in public? There was the second person was the mobilizer for NRM, the Seninde, the woman called Seninde, and her company of things. Then, of course, the other MPs of the opposition from all over the place. In my view, these are things that cause the problems in that places which need to be handled. For example, when I tell my senior comrade Awich that you cannot differentiate government from NRM, he argues, he normally thinks that I'm malicious. He has just confirmed it here, that they are trying to convince some MPs from Acholi sub-region to join NRM, and he was appointed on a government committee. That's how I heard, on a government committee to do that. What is government doing with NRM MPs? This is the problem, mixing things. So, Judith, in this court issue, these people are like what Baganda say, mukalukalu tajabusera. For those who don't understand Luganda, a man was taking porridge. Then when the porridge burnt him, he said the tears started coming. And he asked him, what is the problem? He said, you see, when I'm taking porridge like this, I remember my people who have died, who should have been together with me here taking this porridge, but now they are not anywhere. That's why I'm crying. But it's not the relatives. It is the porridge that had burned. So these people have lost an election. Instead of accepting that we have lost an election, we are weak in this area, and they go and do other business elsewhere, they now want to deceive us that, we were cheated. Who cheats who in this kind of thing? Who would cheat who? Who do they want to deceive? That NUP would cheat NRM? When NRM had the machinery of government, had all the military authorities, had the members of the Electoral Commission, because I was watching on TV where people were opening up stations, and in one of them, the leader of opposition was almost killed there. And I was wondering, where is the Electoral Commission in all this? So I really feel that we just need to sit down in a room, and we say, where did the rain started beating us as a country, and we correct, other than deceiving us and scapegoating and deceiving people after wasting a lot of money in a small election. Now they want to justify that the reason why we lost this election is because there was no, that is a lie.
How much was it again?
The
How much was
difference,
spent?
The difference of the vote.
The amount of money spent in the election?
No, you would see by the activity taking place there. I don't know the amount really,
What has it? Okay.
but you would see the activity taking place there. You would know that a lot of money is being spent.
Yeah, so maybe just for clarity to George and Major here, the media reports put the figures at about 12 billion shillings that was spent.
You can
And
imagine.
Just for the record, we don't know
Who spent?
by NRM in the campaign.
You can imagine.
If just for clarity,
if
that's what we need
if
to know
NRM spent 12 billion in that election, even Alukola would have voted for Nambi.
So, but how much do you think was spent, roughly?
Let's not over exaggerate.
Mhm.
I think
So
that
I think of 6, so.
we don't know.
But certainly
You
money
see,
was
when you
spent.
talk of expend, when you're saying the money spent in this election, I thought you are talking of the total cost, maybe the cost that government needs. For example,
What do you know? Yes.
the Electoral
Tell us.
Commission, the ballot papers for the Electoral Commission.
No,
the-
we're
Yeah.
not talking about
But,
that.
but now, if
what
you're
the
talking
party,
about our party cost,
Yes.
then what business do you have talking about our
It is
money?
our money.
Your party money,
Yes.
not
No,
your
no,
money.
This party is not a Sudanese party.
It may be the party money,
So-
but I think the underlying issue is the commercialization of politics, which we've also talked about
Yeah.
here in these shows, and what this also portends for our politics going forward. Because the argument here is that our politics is highly commercialized, and it's only getting worse. So we'd
Judith.
just like to know.
Judith, if I say it here,
Don't be fooled, because I'm the one who brought this point. When a prime minister is driving a vehicle there with her convoy and her staff, they are not spending party money, they are spending government money. When you see another minister and the president having a rally there, they are not spending party money, because I did not see vehicles written on NRM there. They are UG vehicles that are running around, that hiring hotels, that are doing things. They are spending our money.
okay, let's just put it this way, Judith,
Mhm.
that perhaps from the public perception, seeing what was going on in Kawempe, that a lot of money was spent. But I don't think to say 12 billion, 9 billion.
I don't know the
I don't
figure.
think that's not accurate.
I think that's just the
But let's
calculation
just
we're
agree
making.
that substantial amount of money was spent in this election,
But we can't
which should
know
have
how much.
necessarily been used for. It's like right now I can claim and say, oh well, but Noop spent maybe 15 billion. I have no evidence to show for that. So let's not talk about the exact figures. Let's just say a substantial amount of money was actually spent in that election.
Which could have been put to better use. Thank you. Joseph.
Judith, you guys were nearly getting worried because this is a timed program that I nearly would arrive here late. But as you know, I rushed because of an urgent medical emergency. The emergency is an up-country emergency. And it's an emergency from Acholi. And it's an emergency from somebody whom I've only met once recently when I went to Gulu and Kirku. And it's an emergency about somebody who simply couldn't afford an emergency medical attention. And somebody who's just lucky that they knew me. And I was just about to go to the bath when I saw a phone call. And I was nearly getting irritated. Why me, of all people? But it's genuinely true that this individual had nobody else to go to. That is the criminality that NRA has put and the context within which we're discussing the cost of elections. I also, the other week, was found somewhere in Kabalagala, and I saw how rude Mr. Museveni's new soldiers actually are to citizens, trying to push them away when Museveni wants to make his journey to his convoy. So I can imagine his other convoy to Kawempe. And Dr. Ojambo puts it absolutely in context that when this woman, these Mabati thieves go to Kawempe to dance in their funny gomas, they're not particularly exciting. They're wasting our money and our time. And when they block the road, very congested Bombo Road, built by UPC, failed by this lot to expand, they're wasting our resources. And when they block our people for 2 hours before Museveni could go here in Kawempe, in economics that Museveni doesn't know, I don't know which economics he studied in Dar es Salaam. That's man hour in economics, lost to our national economy. Those are the costs. And the journalists, including Steve Bireete, these fantastic young journalists, beaten, the costs, it's our money. And the many others, and the equipment's broken. It's our money, it's public money. So, did we need to go through this? Absolutely not. That said, anyway, good that these guys are going to go to court. But I don't know whether they're going to go to a court-martial, an NRA court-martial, perhaps, because that is done swifter. Comrade Rich, I think, will try to explain that for us. It is a March, and Dr. Ojambo, for information, not only do I have an electoral petition in court, it's a UPC presidential elections matter that brings myself, Jim McKenna, Peter Olobiri, UPC's Electoral Commission, and the Uganda People's Congress, the oldest political party in this country, in court.
5 years.
4 years this month, in court. 4 years. A matter of a judicial review. They should have taken 6 months. So I don't know where these guys are going to go to.
No, they have their judges.
Oh, they've got their judges. In fact, I'll say it for the record that Dr. Zingiza,
we'll hear the petition.
he is one of those people who detained our matter, for 2 years. Dr. Zingiza, I think he's being promoted exactly for that. Blocking democracy in this country for Uganda People's Congress. That's what we're talking about. But guys, what Mr. Museveni needed to have said in that funny letter of his, actually the letter is very funny, one of them really, at least when he was actually invoking the military, and I don't know who advised this guy's man, he could easily have said that, well, I saw soldiers participating in this. It was unacceptable. I have taken up this matter as president. You know, something actually as positive as that could have actually turned around the tone of his messaging, that patronizing messages to him. You know, I've got grandchildren and they're fantastic citizens, but they're not Museveni's Besuku. I've got children, including, by the way, my daughter is doing fantastic, my young daughter, you know, fantastic, and the older one too. But no, they're not Mr. Museveni's Besuku. Thankfully, the other one is just off it. They're not. Sarah, Shafika Rain, Comrade Wish, you missed him. Shafika Rain, one of the most fantastic, genuine Ugandan Asians I ever met. Not like these funny guys who make money and steal our money, you know. Genuine Ugandan citizens born more interested in this country. I could give him the presidency than to giving to many of our African guys here. Told me that Joseph, when we came back in 1979-80, he was one of the strategists for UPC. And he told me that, look, we knew roughly the number of seats we might win at the general elections. And he also says that we knew we would not win more than 2 seats in Buganda. We knew we would not win more than 2 seats in Buganda, and they won 1 in Mubende. NRM knows that although Buganda gave them the backbone and foundation to break the necks of our people and come to power, they've lost it out to NUP. Politically, a responsible political organization, not even a political organization, would say that, look, at the moment, the tide is not really in our favor. So the possibility of winning Kawempe to replace Sigirinya, beaten, and who died in the circumstances in which he did, was close to impossible. So really what NRM needed to do was to participate in the elections, you know, be civil about it, put up your hands, show a good image, go and persuade a few people in Acholi, you know, so that you can add your numbers. But talk about it, of course, we know that now they're going to go and buy people in Acholi. How people in Acholi, while people in Buganda are being beaten by NRM and Kawempe, and people in Acholi, I think there is some curse going on in this country. That people in Acholi think they can now go ahead and work with NRA, with the Baganda have rejected. And it's not about tribalizing and contextualizing it, you know, in terms of politics of a nationhood and where these things came. This is the time for us to be coming together as a people, you know. I think Kawempe, and I know George was at one time rather uncomfortable about this, and I know that, you know. I'm simply saying that provocatively, I think Kawempe is provoking politics for identity, considering the manner in which NRA came in. These guys needed to concede that they lost Kawempe, and we need to repersuade Buganda in a particular way. From our perspective as UPC, we know that we're possible not to win a majority in Buganda, but politics is not a must. Win, you must win. No. There's a way in which you can have it, and Sarah was putting a conversation that maybe NUP, of course, my view is that the party that should be supported by opposition is Uganda People's Congress, you know, and not any other political party. But that's fair game in politics. We have conversation about how can we align, how can we work together. You know, there are even people who are working with NRM from UPC, and I would say today, some of them actually feel genuinely convinced that it's a fair thing to do. I don't agree. You know, but those are all the possibilities. In any case, I'm actually leading the program to say, look, what is it that we can have a national conversation in which we have a national healing and possibly have a government of national unity of some sort? We're NRA guys, we've got fantastic friends here, you know, NRA, DP, NUP, whatever. We come together, heal as a nation, and build a post-Museveni Uganda going forward. Kawempe has been a fantastically terrible example of it.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, as NRM plans to take legal action, I'm glad you just reminded us of President Museveni's campaign for the NRM candidate on Wednesday, which was the last day for campaigns. And it certainly came with a lot of inconvenience for the other candidate. Nalukola was forced to move his campaign venue to some other place, and yet that venue had already been gazetted by the Electoral Commission, I'd like to assume. Does that constitute disenfranchisement of voters, of Nalukola supporters? Because he would probably also argue the same. And if NRM is actually pursuing this case in court, would it also be looking at instances where it was actually an aggressor to the other party, or where it inconvenienced the other party? George. or even Sarah, I'm just throwing this question to anyone. I mean, you're an election expert, you're a lawyer. From a legal standpoint, do you think they should actually also scrutinize their own failures?
Well, like we have all, I think here on the panel we agree on one thing, that everything that could go wrong in an election
Went wrong.
went wrong in Kawempe by-election. The question that we can ask without going into particular, specifics is what should be done. The actions that need to be taken are pure administrative. They are not illegal. For example, the excessive deployment and the excessive use of military force. You have a command-in-chief writing to Bazukuru. It seems the military also, what were they doing? This is a command-in-chief of the defense forces who should go to the Army Council, call his command, the Army High Command, and say, who did what in Kawempe? The discipline in the army is clearly written. First is for him to start with his son. So instead, he's scared of reprimanding his child and he's writing to the grandchildren. It seems everything in the army went wrong. Really? Mr. President, really? Why doesn't this man go home if he has reached this level? Who deployed the army? Who did what? Everything is on the camera. Go to Army Command, fire some of them, discipline some of them, demote some of them. You don't need to get to waste our blue paper as a country, writing to grandchildren on excesses of your own son in the army. Do you need an investigation? No. When you look at the abuse by police, what is that DPC in one day they are doing in office? What? After what he did on camera, what is he doing in office? Do you need an investigation? No. On the other hand, I would go to Electoral Commission. I would go to the person who commanded JAT. They should leave the army. Then I go to Electoral Commission. In my view, Justice Byabakama's Electoral Commission have no confidence to exercise their constitutional mandate. Imagine all these things happening in the country. Have you seen any statement from Electoral Commission? They are accountable to the people. They are in their offices looking down. When the confusion happened in Kawempe nomination, did you see any statement? Zero. Results are announced. Every stakeholder is contesting. Have you seen anything from Electoral Commission? Zero. They are not accountable to the people. They are not accountable to anyone. And they have no confidence to exercise, to claim their mandate given in the Constitution. Those are the administrative things we need to deal with.
Thank you, Judge.
Judith, I do not wish that this show imagines that if there was no petition from NRM, that everything that went in Kawempe was okay. This is where I'm coming from. Because I'm saying we shouldn't be here to say, oh, because Nalukola won. In any case, the NUP candidate was popular. He has won. So there should be no business about it. There is winning an election. There is even losing an election. The question we are asking, and that is why we have had this show for a long time, is the credibility of the electoral process. And that is where we should be putting a lot of our energy. And that's why, for me, I see this as an opportunity for us to interrogate that election, whether or not it was Nalukola who won that election. I am very sure that if the Electoral Commission had declared Nambi the winner, there would be so many voices that would be saying, we need an investigation, we need to go to court, and so on and so forth. That's the nature of our politics. You get it? So once somebody loses, then the other party says, no, we must. He has a legitimate case for an investigation, for a court, and so on. When the other one loses, the other one goes. No, this is an opportunity. That's why I see it differently. For me, I am not even focusing on who has won that election. I want us to focus on the conduct of that election. And in the president's message, which I really think he could be having his own intentions, but I think it has provided us an opportunity, all of us. There are things that he looks at which he feels are of a criminal nature and need to be handled by courts. There are also those that he sees, because he says there has got to be an investigation. Yet at the same time, he has also said we have got to go to court. Going to court is determining the criminalities that happened in that election. The administrative one is the one where he says the government must investigate. Okay? In the process of that investigation, they will be able to determine what were the loopholes in that overall election. Is there a prima facie case here against the conduct of certain police officers, against certain military officers, against elections officers, and so on and so forth, that can become of an administrative nature. It has got to be grounded on certain investigation. You can't just sit there and say, because I saw it on TV and so on and so forth, let me just have it. You must have a basis on which to act. And there is only one way to do it. One, conduct an investigation, the report of which can then identify where are those areas that require administrative measures to be done. Then if there is anything that has got to be, has a legal dimension to it, we go to court and prosecute it in court. So to me, this is a very good opportunity for us. Those who are aggrieved, like many of us who saw the violence in that election, it's an opportunity now for Ugandans to go and testify before court or before an administrative unit that will be set up. I am hoping that will become a public hearing so that we can have people coming to testify, especially during the investigation. And then when it comes to court, we will also have people who will swear in affidavits, both on the side of NRM and also on the side of the petition. Then we shall interrogate the whole elections exercise and use it.
Thank you.
Yes, you ask a question, two pieces of question that I would like to answer. You ask about when the president came, how this guy's campaign point was relocated. And then you also ask whether or not, if NRM went to court, it would also interrogate itself. So those are the two questions I'm replying. But first, I'd like to reply to what my brother Antare Sarah said. She is saying that if she was in government, or what she wants government to do is to fire the DPC, fire some soldier there and do this. Sarah, my view is that that is not how the state is run. If that is how you want to do it, if you are in another party and you came to power, you truly be a dictator. You truly be. You know very well Article 44. Article 44 says a right to be heard. Whatever burning and sensational a matter is, the investigation that we are talking about presupposes that you will hear the sides of the story. So how are you going to jump up and kick the DPC of one again and then kick the other Jatman and do whatever to be overcome and do that the way you're saying it if you have not investigated the way Honourable Odongo has said? Investigation means you are not circumventing Article 41, which has a provision of a right to be heard. So in the investigation, you are going to hear, you DPC did this. Then you ask him, what did you do? What happened? In that case, whatever action you will take against the DPC, you would have had this version. But the way you put it is like, things can be done arbitrarily, which gives a bad view to the viewers.
That's not my point, but I will answer you.
So that gives a bad view. So the investigation we are talking about, remember I started by saying, the president even said, even NRM who will be found culpable. So it is work in process. He's even saying, even NRM, if you ever got your fingers in a wrong way, you are also subject. So I wanted to say that. Now, back to your question, is that question one is that, you see, we have been moving with this question in the status and the protection of the president who is an incumbent, even during his own presidential campaign. We still have that provision, which I think is even in America, where the incumbent president goes with his immunity, with his security, with his protection. So with that, it inconveniences some people. And therefore, that is why the Electoral Commission takes administrative measures to make such allocation or relocation or moving somebody. And it is the inconvenience that we can't do away with, because a president goes with his immunity, goes with his security, goes with all that. So that is what you see that kind of thing happen. And not only does it happen in even these other by-elections, but even during presidential campaign, people have been saying, why should the president be like this or that? But our law says the president will always be that until he hands over. On the question of NRM going to court and interrogating itself, normally, as I said, it's a civil matter. The one who goes to court is the one who feels aggrieved, is the one who feels his rights are violated. So you can't say you're going to court for a violation of your rights, and then when you reach to court, you are actually saying how you are violating other people's rights. That is not how court system works. So you don't, now, if you want such kind of provisions, it is what Sarah was saying, she would want to apply to be the friends of court to bring such matters. But as a rule or procedure, he who runs to court is the one who is seeking justice, is the aggrieved. So the aggrieved doesn't go to court and say, you know, I'm aggrieved, but I beat somebody here. It doesn't. You can only bring it as a defense or as a counter evidence. So I just wanted to answer those two questions.
I have a quick question, please.
Okay, and then we'll take a break. Yes, just very quickly, please.
Yeah, so Awich, my submission is premised on the assumption of institutions. So if there is a misconduct by a police officer, I wouldn't expect the police to call the Honourable police officer to Wandega. I summon the IGP and I say, give me a report on ABC. The IGP has systems, including disciplinary committees and whatever. So I get a report of IGP and I act.
That is the process
I
that
said
is
the
ongoing.
process of
That is what is ongoing.
No, first wait. On the issue of the army, I was more specific. I said, why don't you go to the High Command instead of writing to Vasco? Go to the High Command has structures. Then you can ask who was in charge of this deployment. Then you put up committees there. Because in this question, what the issue that begs the question is, who will be the investigator? A certain Honourable George on the committee, who will investigate?
By the way,
which committee?
By the way, we need to put this in context. You see, the president communicates in principle, but they granulate some of those issues into actions. Those are, when he says administrative, we want to have government to investigate. It means the IGP is part of government. He will ask the IGP, I want a report. It means the CDF has got to give him a report on the conduct of the military. He will not tell you that. Now I've told he only was writing to tell the public, and usually he uses the word bazukuru. He is trying to account to his bazukuru to say, you know, this is what I am doing as the president. I have instituted an inquiry onto A, B, C, D. He doesn't need to say, I have asked now the CDF to do this. I have asked the DPP to do this. He doesn't have to do those details.
Yes, but anyway.
Get it? So he's communicating in principle out there.
Let's wait. I remember the tough letters he wrote after Karamoja Mabatsaga. Up to now, there's zero action almost.
I know we're going for break.
Wow. Two ministers lost jobs.
So
no
action.
out
Of
there is another one in court.
No, there's
How
the
many
one in court. No, but you said no action. But you said no action. Is it true that there is no action?
I said almost no action.
Oh, but okay,
So
but
you
there
didn't hear
was
the
action.
almost.
There was action.
That is true.
Ladies, gentlemen, it's time for us to take a break. And then when we return, this conversation continues. This is a chat show. Do stay with us.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from the break, and we're glad that you're still with us here on the Citizens Chat Show as we continue with our discussion on the plans by the NRM to go to court over the Kawempe by-election. And shortly, we shall be delving into the conversation about our supplementary budgets for this financial year. But before we went to the break, Mr. Joseph Ochieno, you wanted to come in just a little bit on the issue of this NRM situation, and then
I think I'll conclude. Yeah, just a very brief conclusion. I think George was making some very interesting points, and if it was unintended, you'll forgive me. But actually, George's argument that we should go to court, although possibly is not the ideal way, he seems to suggest that yes, this matter, should it generally go to court, I hope it doesn't go to court martial, and should it go to court expeditiously, it will be possible for this nonsensical mess of whatever happened in Kawempe to be brought up. And I really hope that an outcome of that could be the basis on which we can have a genuine conversation, including opposition political parties asking themselves whether or not they're ready or the country is ready for a possibility of elections in early next year, which is hardly 10 months away. It's interesting. I take you guys in the back, but it's important context. In 1979-80, Mr. Museveni vehemently argued that the country wasn't ready for a democratic election because there wasn't yet peace and security. So now I say, if we saw the kind of tanks and armament and those major anti-aircraft operations in Kawempe City, is it possible that an outcome of such a discussion, public hearing, maybe in court, concludes that the state of the country is such that there is no guarantee that we shall have a free and fair election come the next elections? In any case, part of the means that I had suggested, but I didn't state, was that perhaps these guys wanted to win Kawempe through hook and crook because they know that the next few months people will be campaigning around the country, and they did not want to grant hopelessness to electors from outside Buganda, because as I said, in Buganda, sort of meaning foregone conclusion. I'm not saying that they may not claw back, but it's a difficult task to be able to do so. And so I thought that would be important. But finally, I think George and Comrade Awich, you guys advised Mr. Museveni that Kawempe was a huge lost and wasted opportunity. I nearly respected this guy for the first time.
Which guy?
Comrade Museveni. I nearly respected him after Bukedia. That, including on this show, we did a fantastic job to bring out the extremes of Bukedia by-elections. And Museveni later, in the shame and embarrassment, just like we're discussing here, came out and said, no, what I saw there was unacceptable, it was terrible, and it should not be allowed, and whatever. Again, whoever has been held responsible, I don't know. But this is the argument that has been made from Rewich.
RDC was arrested.
And RDC was arrested.
And then what? For
and whatever the case.
Punished.
But whatever the case, the point, Sarah, is this, that some people suggest, and I've met also an RDC from somewhere, ironically, in recent times, that believe that the reaction of Museveni helped, notwithstanding the dynamics in Oyam, helped to ensure that Oyam was not as violent, as Bukedia, and Doklo was not as violent. So I am saying that a Museveni reaction, if responsible, works, and it's a lost opportunity. Meaning that even if they had organized like his son had instructed, where people argue that the Kawempe violence and the Kawempe election was a battle, and is almost a battle between young Mr. Muhoozi, Museveni's son, and Robert Chagulanyi, and who will show you what to do, including those tweets. There's an argument to that effect. That Mr. Museveni comes and pretends that, oh, my son is just a cheeky little boy, forget about him, but I'm the father and I'm responsible. And, you speak like an elder and you calm down situations. It's a lost opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much to you all for your thoughts on that. Let's now move into the issue of our supplementary budgets. And just interestingly, over the last few days, the Daily Monitor has actually been chronicling or profiling instances where public money is actually being used to line private pockets. We have just a story here of 179 billion shillings given to Inspire Africa Coffee, which is an entity owned by a private investor. We have an instance of billions or even trillions of shillings. I can't even do the math. There's 1.4 trillion given to Bireete in, I think, March 2019. Another 2.7 billion given in 2023, 286 billion in 2023, then 298 billion in, I think, March 2020. I can't see very well. But in total, that's about 4.2 trillion given to an individual. That's Bireete for the Lubowa Hospital. And there's another heading that says Nothing Sweet from Atiak, also looking at how much money has actually been given to a private investor, about 668 billion shillings. But that's just besides the point. I want to take you back, Dr. Sarah. Weeks ago, you had an engagement with the opposition, with the shadow cabinet, about alternative budgeting for this financial year. And the focus from the LOP and his team was to prioritize fighting corruption. If you could just take us back to that discussion, and then hopefully that can set the pace for this discussion that we're having about budget.
You see, Uganda under President Museveni has two chronic diseases when it comes to budgeting. One is corruption and misappropriation, I don't know, lack of prioritization as a country. And the second one is supplementary budgets, also related to corruption and wasteful expenditure. Why do I say so? When you go under the provisions of that govern budget, first is Article 79 of the Functions of Parliament, but also Article 155, and specifically subsection 4, that provides for the role of Parliament. After the President, who is the de facto Minister of Finance, presenting the budget, or through his representative, Parliament under Article 4 is mandated to review and recommend changes to the whole House. In those reviews, the technocrats are supposed to defend their position of appropriation, but they are supposed to listen to the people of, that represent citizens who are MPs. Why am I bringing in that clause? Last year, the President did author a letter, an angry letter accusing Parliament of taking over the function of appropriation and engaging in corruption just by reallocating money for ambulances and health centers. And because the President preferred to have that money for ROCO, and I don't remember another enterprise, for giveaway. And that was the whole quarrel. The President quarreling and saying the Parliament has no power to review the budget. But Article 155 is clear. Review and recommend to the full House at committee level. And the full House assumes that the government is represented because there are two sides. You have government side, you have the opposition side, and the third one of independence. So once these three and the cabinet is fully represented with a leader of government business, so they're supposed to take a joint decision on these recommendations out of review. But the President was angry, abusing Parliament, And the leadership of parliament, I don't know whether they panicked or out of incompetence, then seemed to agree with the president, who rarely, and I think only accidentally, implements the constitution because he seems to prefer to govern outside the constitution. So that was the mistake that parliament made. Having said that, so what should be the priorities of the country? And who should raise these priorities? It should be government. We lose 10 trillion in corruption, according to the Inspector of Government, the IG. The money could be more, but that we will go with the official data. So if we saved this 10 trillion, for example, by focusing on recovery, because when it comes to prostitution, the trend that we have taken over time, there's a lot of abuse, selective application, witch hunt, and I don't think prostitution has helped in fighting corruption in this country. So if we focused on recovery after thorough investigation, recovery, confiscation of property, we would recover the taxpayers' money more than going into prostitution, where we even spend more money to prosecute people with a lot of biases that exist in our judiciary and the way we use it. So the second issue would be then, what are the other priorities of citizens? Other than closing the gaps for loss of taxpayers' money, one would assume that you need to focus on health, education, and infrastructure as a priority. We have had a lot of health components being covered by donors. With the current donor freeze, you want a budget where government of Uganda would say, for health and education, we don't need donor funding. We shall cover them on our own 100%. You have government in the supplementary budgets. I think we have taken trillions of money for the coffee factor, as you mentioned, for Wapa and for Atiak, among others. But we have not created a provision where HIV/AIDS clinics have closed because of donor freeze. So you would have assumed that after USAID declarations, a normal government would have presented the supplementary budgets to cushion the people that have been thriving on USAID funds. But instead, we want a more empty hole of Wapa, we want Atiak, and those are the supplementary budgets, and we want to borrow millions of money for UDB. Nobody's talking of cushioning the lives of people through USAID freeze. So where are our priorities as a country? The second example, as I conclude on lack of priorities or priorities that don't benefit the common person, is education. The country has been struggling with the curricula for A level. Do you know why we are stuck? Even when we took so long to wake up, the experts were supposed to be paid under USAID grant. So when USAID closed the taps, people until the last 1 week, previous weekend, we are working later at Aga Khan, struggling to cover the new curricula for A level, but still experts are not paid because of USAID freeze. So which kind of country that cannot cushion its own citizens on health and education gaps, and we are interested in empty elephant projects like Wapa, like Atiak, that are swallowing taxpayers' money and are just conduits for corruption?
Thank you. Doctor.
Yeah, Judith, I have said this over and over again. The issue of supplementary budget is a scam in this country, a huge scam. And if we were in a serious government, it would even lead to a government losing power through an impeachment or something else. But we're in this banana republic where people talk about things and they end. This year alone, just 2025, the government of Uganda has approved 2 supplementary budgets for things which you were listing. In January, the beginning of this year, we had a supplementary budget of a tune of 10.5 trillion. It was approved. This current one is 4.2 trillion. You were wondering whether it is going to be approved. I can confirm to you it has been approved. It has already been approved because the minority report of Semuju was rejected by the plenary. They really listened to it. They were sympathetic, but they would not do anything. Now, there are laws governing supplementary budget in our fiscal calendar. For example, the Public Finance Management Bill, Act, and many others. And it states situations through which a supplementary budget can be brought to Parliament. One of them is unforeseen situations. It must be unforeseen that when the planning was being taken, they did not see that arise. Number two is emergency. There must be unforeseeable, that's the word maybe. Then emergency, maybe there is a famine or there is earthquake or something has happened and so on and so forth. Number two, there is a threshold. There is a threshold of, that's number three now, the threshold of the budget, the total budget that is allowed. Remember, last year our budget was 72 trillion. So there is a percentage that you should not go beyond. 3%. Just add. Fine. I'm just talking about this quarter alone. This quarter alone, which started in January. No, this is now the third quarter. But the second and the third quarter, that is 14.7 trillion that has been approved in supplementary budget. That is in addition to others which came earlier that I don't want to go into now in this financial year 2024-25. So that's why I'm saying supplementary budget issue in Uganda is a scam. And it looks like majority of the members of parliament, in our parliament, are not aware about this thing, or if they are aware, they have nothing to do. So there are only a few people you hear Semuju. In fact, Semuju spends a lot of time on this affair. In fact, I vote in Nakawa West. I wish I'd changed now to vote in Kira, because he's the only one. The rest of the MPs are only waiting to approve. And they're approving. For you were mentioning some of those things. I looked at the list of things that were being approved to be financed by a supplementary budget. And I said, oh, if God was alive, I tend to believe in what Wamala wrote, The Death of God. Wamala is one of the professors of philosophy in Makerere, wrote a dissertation, The Death of God. And he suggests that the only thing that shows that there is a death of God when certain things start happening and nothing happens. During that time when God was alive in the history of the Old Testament, you remember he would act immediately, and he would sometimes burn villages. Things which are happening under the supplementary budget are scams. And you are right to say that this is an avenue, and I tend to believe it. I tend to believe in what Monitor is doing, that it is an avenue of stealing money and giving it to private people, from the treasury. Why would there be a supplementary budget to run projects which were already planned for, financed? They are not even moving. There is no even feasibility study being done on them to get the M&E of how they are progressing, and we extend more money to them without knowing how far they are going. That ATIAC thing has been a very serious area where money has been stolen through. I told you about a man who was given money, 667 billion Uganda shillings to build a laboratory which was going to produce for us a vaccine for foot and mouth disease. And I was asking if that money was given to a department in Makerere University or Kyambogo University, I thought they would do a better job, because they already have those laboratories. They have such laboratories which are already serving. I told you that Makerere Kyambogo University to run a whole financial year requires 338 billion only. That is to pay wages and everything. But an individual in Kawempe was being given 667 billion to construct a laboratory to produce a vaccine, just a vaccine of foot and mouth disease. So I tend to think that it is true. Number last is that I think the people in the Ministry of Finance have also discovered that this is a good avenue for getting money to themselves, because they're the ones who prepare these things and give them to the minister later to present to the House. And it looks like there are deals being hatched here, that money moves back and forth. And therefore, as she said, it is a corruption tendency. But the other thing, the last one, I think our Minister of Finance is not a honorable person. And here, when I say the Minister of Finance, you know who I'm talking about. I think there is a very big problem. So I want to argue that the fiscal management of the Republic of Uganda is really faulty.
Thank you, Dr. Ojambo. I'll come to you, but also going forward, you know, there are concerns. This is an election year, and we always see a tendency where whenever it's an election year, there's a lot of money that comes in to flood the market. And that even within Parliament, especially within the members of the opposition, there are concerns that perhaps all these requests for supplementary budgets here and there are also a ploy to get money to probably buy elections or bribe voters or something like that. But I'd definitely like to hear your thoughts as you weigh in on these issues of the supplementary requests.
I like the last part. You see, when you're in government, it's a complete delicate balance. But what we see, the trends can show that we have indiscipline. Indiscipline in government, and it's largely because we do not adhere to certain governance principles around budgets. Budget is a policy tool. It's a very, very strong policy tool. Tell me your budget and I will know what is your policy direction, what are your ambitions. Because the budget then indicates where you would want to spend your resources. So what we are seeing in the case of our budget system, number one, you see these supplementaries coming frequently, I think is an indication of indiscipline in the way we are managing our overall finances. Because ideally, when a budget is presented, when you see you have budget priorities, and right now we are in the budget cycle. We have started the budget cycle, and every ministry is looking at its priorities and developing ministerial policy statements that indicate where you are going to allocate. So government has an allocative function, which basically identifies priorities, where money should go, and also gives timelines. But because of indiscipline, you find that we have allocative inefficiency. So allocative inefficiency means that you have a lot of resources that are not achieving, the specific targets. So you can put in money, but it does not achieve. So what we should be looking out for is allocative efficiency, meaning achieving results at the least cost possible. Trouble is that we are not managing the cost element in our government. So that's why you hear people making fun of even a road. A short road is costing this. In other jurisdictions, it's costing maybe 10 or 5% and so on and so forth. So as a result, and I think that's what Dr. Sarah here had initially mentioned, that, we are struggling with the issue of corruption. There are so many leakages, so much so that it does not really matter now how much you allocate. As long as you have not plugged the holes, then that money is not going to be sufficient to achieve that, and you end up coming back
So we are fetching good university.
and because we do not have our institutions are not strong enough to fight corruption. And by the way, the corruption that is at that level of influencing policy, influencing appropriation, is mega corruption. In other jurisdictions, they would call it state capture. Yeah. Because you are influencing policy, and policy has impact. Policy means you have institutions, you have resource allocation, you have people. It's a whole range, if you then have people who have mastered the game, then they are going to influence allocation, they are going to influence policy, they are going to influence institutions, they are going to influence people. And I think those are some of the critical areas that we need to look at in our budget system, because continuous coming in and out all the time for supplementary means there is something that we are not doing on the other, in the pipeline, in the allocation. Because, government has this allocation function. Parliament appropriates, okay? And as she said, Parliament reviews. But there is a net ceiling beyond which Parliament cannot. That's why government has the exclusive responsibility of allocation. So if government, because government controls, is the one that has the means to generate resources, and it has institutions that do that, like Uganda Revenue Authority and so on. So it knows how much is in its purse. So when it presents a budget, it gives you a budget ceiling. It tells you this is the amount of money we have, and this is the budget that we are presenting based on its projections. However, in the middle, you could, like Dr. Ojambo said, you could find that there could be resources maybe coming from counterpart financing. It could be, for example, if USAID says, okay, Uganda, we are giving you 7 million to support a specific government program. All monies that comes through the government coffers has got to be appropriated. So government has got to bring it back to Parliament for necessary appropriation, and that comes in a supplementary budget. So that's money that is realized in the course of implementing activities, or if an activity has been conceived in the middle of the budget that was not initially envisaged. Say, for example, you now have an emergency and so on. That happens. But what we are seeing now is a completely different picture. But something that I want to say, and I've written about it before, and I think I've also shared it with the Major Awich here. There is, as a political party, for example, we go for elections. We elect a government. Okay? We are elected, and then you say, oh, now it is NRM government. So now once NRM government has been put into power, the NRM government begins to implement programs. Trouble is that there is a disconnect between the political organization here, which is the NRM, and the machinery of government that is implementing programs. So the bulk of the decisions, and I'm talking about governance issues now, because ideally you would want to say decisions on appropriation, decision on allocation, are supposed to be decisions that are generated from the ordinary citizen who says these are our priorities. And it's also a principle of budgeting. Okay? But the political party as the NRM, you find the bulk of that decision making has been outsourced to the caucus. There is an organ called the caucus. But the caucus may not have sufficient time to interrogate some of these budgets. So there is need to build a nexus between the government that is implementing the programs and the political organization that is in power, so that they begin to exercise that right to hold the government that they have elected accountable. Because in the end, 5 years down the road, you are going to go back to NRM to start asking for votes on account of what you have implemented, yet that is not the decision of the ordinary citizens that put you in power. You see where I'm talking about? So it becomes a disconnect. So now you begin to have the political party become like a special purpose vehicle for just an election. But a political organization is not there for just an election. A political organization is there to make sure that they are putting in their inputs on matters of priority, on allocation of resources, on fighting corruption, and so on and so forth. Their input is very, very critical. And I think that right now, as we speak, the technocrats, there is elite capture. You see, the technocratic arm of government has become so powerful, I can assure you, that they have hijacked, the political class are being held hostage by the technocrats. This I can tell you. And because of that, they wield a lot of power. It is soft power that you don't see outside here, but it does exist, because they are the ones now in charge. We are going to allocate a road to your constituency. It is not, so a member of parliament is running around to make sure that they approve that budget. You see? So there are those issues of controls, command and controls within the political and the technical that needs to be discussed to create a balance so that we can have a budget that communicates to the interest of ordinary citizens.
Thank you, Honourable. Thank you. Joseph.
I was nearly beginning to think that George sat in a class in which I was actually in rural East, somewhere in Toro, with 3 young people, 2 from students, and I was telling them about roles of political parties, political values, including ideology, identity, and then how political parties are constituted, and some of the grievances that lead to them, and how policies and programs work, and so including how government work. Particularly to the extent that I actually talked about state capture in principle. Unfortunately, it seems to be what's happening here. I just want to say, though, that while the technocratic wing of government that George refers may be interpreted here as civil servants, I think I see the hands of the executive in this, and it's fully the executive that, 1, has made this, and 2, that is operationalizing it. In any case, actually, on the basis of the manner in which our constitution is framed, that they hold and wield that power. And unfortunately, I don't see a willing executive that is able and capable of addressing some of those issues. In any case, I think we've ended up with state capture almost as a matter of policy by the executive. And indeed, if you go back to where politics of mafiaism, again another definition, supposedly run side by side with that, which is very unfortunate. 3 years ago on this program, and 3 years ago at the sister program, Focus on Parliament, I was a guest with a serving member of parliament, a young guy who these days is not particularly common in my inbox. I don't know for whatever reason, but I thought we're friends going forward. The young guy committed himself to me and to Ugandans on camera that they're going to work extremely hard to make sure that they reviewed this terrible animal called supplementaries, including the 3% thing. And was he talking about it? I think he was even talking about the next session of Parliament, which would have been the following year, which was probably last year or thereabout, that a conversation about a review of the constitution of parliamentary procedure to make sure that we fill in the gap of this thing of every year we lose a huge amount of money in the name of supplementaries. This young man told me that, like him, a number of legislators saw this organ of theft called supplementary budgeting as a disease, a sickness that needed to be stopped. Today, the way you presented it, Judith, it's actually it's almost a commonsensical joke, considering the introductory submissions I made, which was rather emotional because it's real, about linking to some of the things that all my colleagues are talking about, the death of public services, that the person chasing me should be able to get access to medical facilities and should be able to go there and get treatment. I nearly told a WhatsApp group, this group, that I was closely bereaved, because I was closely bereaved last week. And Sarah, I lost the eldest Ochieno in my family. So now I'm the oldest Ochieno. And this guy is my cousin, but this guy died almost like a pauper. And this guy at 93, this guy had a dislocation, a minor accident. And this guy could not get fully treated and away from family and others. It was almost certainly medical negligence that saw this guy die. And we were there in Agongera with many other people, and there's so many other things that I don't want to go into. You know, the state of our public services, the state particular of our health services, the state of our educational services system, the state of our infrastructure, the state of unemployment in this country, is such that the headlines that you see about a trillion shillings going to someone who's not even Ugandan, and 4 trillion shillings or perhaps 600 billion shillings going to a business person who's possibly not an emerging entrepreneur like George here to support a farm or a project somewhere in Electoral. And it's sort of like business as usual. We have this conversation and we go on and on and on. There is something fundamentally wrong in this country. There's something fundamentally wrong and things are unacceptable. I genuinely don't think, though, that Ugandans sufficiently understand. Those 3 graduates that I met yesterday morning, before setting off, one of whom is a teacher who graduated in 2009, and she's worked in private schools and she's failed to get onto a government payroll. The other whom I met, whose parents sold off land at 4 million Uganda shillings to bribe their way into public service in order to gain access to public services, but they still didn't get the job. Then these other 2 young students I met at Bireete University, with both struggling parents, one from the other end of Bukedi near Bugiso, and then another one from somewhere at the heart of Budumasaka. And they tell you stories about struggling parents, but the second-year students studying education. And side by side with that conversation, say, look, these guys' parents are struggling, but you know that there's no guarantee that if they graduate, they're going to be able to get postings and to get access to education. Some of my own family that you don't want to go to, where somebody graduated in a prestigious course, but they've spent 11 years. Somebody associated who's married into my family, who's been a nurse for 11 years, but they're still just trying to struggle to go to gain access to government. Comrade Awich talked about Colonel Lawrence. Did you talk about Colonel Lawrence? Colonel Lawrence is close to my heart. Boroboro, that is the TTC that my late brother attended. My brother finished at Colonel Lawrence, and he was posted to Njero Primary School in Jinja. That's how that's how I first made a trip to Jinja, going to my brother who had been posted to Njero Primary School. And I'm saying these are supposed to be formalities, and they were formalities 50 years ago. And today we are playing with public money like this. No, it's organized theft. It's deliberate. It's a push by the establishment. The establishment is Mr. Museveni and his bunch of mafias. And we know who these people are, because in any case, I must say this, Pineti is Museveni's girl. And Mr. Museveni is able to dare tell us openly. He's his girl, this girl here, this coffee canister. How dare he? Atiak, should we talk about Atiak? And I was invoking Achola, and you see the context, George. I don't tribalize. In UBC, we don't. We are nationalists, and we are, in fact, Pan-Africanists. I was simply saying, if you consider what happened to Acholi under NRA, under the end of the war, which is an NRA, with LRA, NRA-LRA war, at the end of that war, you don't need a tax. These monies need to be injected into the social economy of the Acholi people as a community, and to be given to a dubious woman. And I don't know that a Tiak woman, is she Ugandan?
No.
Is she Ugandan?
No, she's from Ethiopia.
Can you imagine? Now, close to what George was saying, this ideological polity that in normal times, Comrade Awich, genuinely now I can also understand. Comrade today I will give you a little bit of a tick. Because some of these guys genuinely struggle, and then they say, we NRM, at our secretariat, our manifestos, our program and government, so they defend their end, and you actually see that it's genuine. So you talk about an NRA organization, some members of who broke away from UPC.
Yeah, but Joe, if I may ask,
yeah, sure.
If you are a ruling party, a party in power, a party whose manifesto we are discussing in budget,
Yeah, I get you.
where do they draw the line?
Now, that answer, I would like you to allow me to.
Say it again. You are a ruling party, a party whose manifesto we implement. Each budget is an implementation of your manifesto. Where do you wash your hands clean?
Things are not happening.
From budget fraud and budget issues.
Resign. Yeah. So basically, so really that's the thing. So the point is that Awich, if you're allegedly left-leaning political party organization and you believe in that, Sarah's just telling us that's from Burinyanji, by the way. That you believe that you're a left-leaning progressive political party, whose focus should be, to buy from UPC. Of course, you guys buy a lot from us. How we invested in education, how we invested in health, how we invested in infrastructure, the long railways, the long trains, the long buses, the long planes that we did. Policy things that Joyce talk about. And that is where when you look at the budget framework, backed by using at the heart fiscal and monetary policy and program to play the balances, including taxation and which bank is doing what and interest rates and things like that. Those are the tools, for government to be able to do that. At what stage do these technocrats who let down these guys fail to do that? And when they do that, Comrade, year in, year out, year in, year out, why don't you resign from NRM?
Yes,
Comrade.
I'll give you the microphone.
You want me to start with this? Why I don't resign is because NRM is a progressive revolutionary party which
Sarah,
is
there you get your
going
answer
to
from Tara.
lead to the social transformation of the people. So I can't resign. Notwithstanding the challenges that I know is part of contradictions that are part of the society and part of a phenomenon. We shall not run away from contradictions. But I don't think they are so major that it has reached in my consciousness that it is time for me to leave NRM. No, far from it. Now, we are on the issue of the supplementary budget, but I want to put my audience on notice, or my viewers on notice, that there are issues that I have not answered. The issue of Basukuru, why the president refers to it, which I think is valid. I will. About the president questioning the presence of the army in the election, the recent election. I also talked about a fishing expedition that I thought was not clear. My being on the government team for the negotiation with the opposition, and the money that is alleged that NRM used. I just like to put the viewers on notice that I have not answered those, but an appropriate time I will. So don't think because as a lawyer, a non-response to a paragraph of affidavit would be amounted to a confession or conceding. So I have not replied to that, but that is not to say I've conceded. I have a reasonable response. I'll do it at an appropriate time. Now I go back to supplementary budget. I thank Doctor for giving the legal framework for supplementary. The legal framework is good, and I wish as a country we are there to that. I'm yet to see a day when we shall wake up in one financial year, we put a budget and run it through to the end. And we said next.
With the no supplementary.
Yes, I'm yet to see that. You will see that. But not only after Museveni, but the challenges of the specific countries are there. I know for a fact that the only country that runs a surplus budget and which can run such a kind of budget in the entire 193 countries of the world is Liechtenstein. Liechtenstein is the only country that does that. That does not have any mabanja of any kind. It sets its budget and does it. For the avoidance of doubts for the viewers, Liechtenstein is a country between Germany and Switzerland. And they don't even have a currency of their own. they use Swiss currency and use the central bank of Switzerland, but they're the richest country in Europe. And it has a population of 37,000 people. Yes. So I'm yet to see, but it's very rich because while we ran to Europe for Ochieno, the white doctors in German ran to this center in Ochieno. So you can see if a white doctor is also running for Ochieno in Liechtenstein. So it's that. So this challenge is there. But nevertheless, the spirit behind these other organizations that have been benefiting, I think countries have explained it over and over again, like Atiak or even this coffee for Tugume, is that the output has been given. So whether convincing to the majority members of parliament, we don't know, because I think I see them supporting it. It's supposed to generate employment, it's supposed to generate this, but some people have even asked whether they actually get revenue which pay off this, or we were not better off actually using the money given to them as the money to run the country. Because if you're going to give somebody 600 billion, is he going to export that thing and get 1.2 trillion or what? Or you're actually giving it there? But the argument pros and against that's been given, and we do hope the National Assembly, because not all of us can be in that assembly. We are 45 million people. So out of the 45 million, that assembly can only get our representatives. And the fact that we keep seeing our representatives approving, maybe they are convinced with the benefits that arise to, like employment, then foreign income earning, and all that. But we still have questions remaining on it. There's a serious matter that has been raised that touches this. That is the matter of the principal-agency relationship between the government and the party, and also on how far NRM can wash its hands. Ideally, the governance is that the principal is the political party that wins election. If UPC wins election, UPC would have sold or marketed its manifesto to the people. So what the people bought is the contract between the people and the party. And it is that contractual arrangement that is supposed to be operationalized by government. So in this case, the principal is the party, and because they are voted, and the agency is the government. But I don't know whether because we have not yet grown in that direction, because some governments like CCM in Tanzania, they have grown to that extent. They seem to do it.
As a government,
we may be picking up, because lately there was a loan which was supposed to be got by Ministry of Agriculture to a tune of $350 million. Now, a meeting was called in the office of the Prime Minister, chaired by the Prime Minister, and the intention was that before this loan would be got, the party need to agree, because the party need to check in its manifesto where does this money feature. Because we can't go to Karamoja, to Kotido, to Kisoro, and to Kasese, promise people something else, and then you come and borrow loan for something else. So when the meeting was called, the Secretary General sent me. I was the acting Secretary General. In fact, in the meeting, they were telling me that the last person they want to hear from is the Secretary General, and they were referring to me as the Secretary General. So I had to peruse through the manifesto to see where does this fit in our manifesto. So meaning, therefore, that should be the ideal. Now, it therefore gives us vicarious liability, and we can't run away from it. For example, if government money is corrupted, it's not enough for us as a party to say, it is government. No, we are culpable in vicarious liability. Therefore, it is us as a party that we should still stand firm and clear to call on the executive, because we won and formed government. If we did not win, if NUP had won, Utafire would not be the Minister of Internal Affairs. Okay? Utafire wouldn't. So,
that.
I-
And that's the same spirit that should be translated.
That's correct.
Kawempe means.
So,
Mess of Kawempe.
so
Yes.
it goes all through. I mean, whatever, even in the military, because the military is subordinate to civilian authority, and that civilian authority, you only get that civilian authority through Article 1 by going to the people. The power is to the people. So the people give the power to the party because they voted you, and therefore you appoint a boss, who is the Minister of Defense, and boss, who is supposed to supervise the CDF and the army there too. So this issue remains either a question of political growth, a political maturity, as we say, countries like parties like CCM and ANC in South Africa, they have grown it. Therefore, we still have to find ourselves culpable for such a mission. So we will not run away for a mishandling of a supplementary. I'm not saying it is mishandled, but I'm saying should it occur that supplementary deviates from its principles, and then it's not enough for us as a party, I mean, to say, no, it is government, no, it is us, it would be our failure. In any case, as the Honourable Don says, we shall go back to the people. So what will you tell the people? That the PS local government ate money for PDM? The people will say, we don't know the PS local government. You are the one who came for votes and you promised us PDM. So we don't know about your, if PS stole it, what did you do? Did you kill him? Or did you recover money? So you want to raise a civil servant's misconduct as a defense to the people. So we keep saying this, the agency principle relationship between the party and the government, between the party and the executive. Therefore, unless checked on a case by case, I still have confidence that the supplementary which are done in the broad legal framework that doctor says, we are still doing it in good spirit. And in any case, I don't think we are the only country doing it. I know for a fact, as I said, it's only Liechtenstein which doesn't do it. So we do hope that the mandated people we gave, those agencies of ours, including our cadres who are in the parliament, we have absolute majority. And that's why I was saying, even in the case of Kawempe North, a loss wouldn't be such a big thing to us, because with the majority that we have in parliament, we can still afford to lose even 50 MPs, and we can still have a majority and pass. So I'm finishing in that I like to say we cannot be shielded away from a failure from a branch, because we are a ruling party. But in the instant cases of supplementary, we are still moving within the GDP per ratio. I think there's also a provision there that money should not pass some threshold of a GDP, just the way it is done to loan. And I found out recently that in East Africa, we are so far one of the best in that ratio. So many of these countries like Kenya, you're seeing, they have surpassed that GDP loan relationship, or even the threshold of these budget issues that we're talking, like supplementary. So by our eyes, it looks so bad, but I have seen it in comparative terms. We are not the worst.
You are comparing yourself with the
But there's civilized nations like us.
I've also been told that we are really pressed by time,
Comparing.
but I'll still allow you people to
No, let's
speak,
finish.
and then let's ask,
if
and
I
then
may
George will
start.
say
So,
something, and then we'll conclude.
Afanda, which is talking about running the surplus budget or a deficit budget, and the crisis of borrowing, because I think our loan portfolio is really raising concerns, including Bank of Uganda. But the major question we are asking is a misuse of budget provisions and the abuse of supplementary provision. Whereas the law says you get a supplementary budget for unforeseeable and unavoidable circumstances. For us, we have made it part of the norm, to the extent that Sometimes supplementary budgets are about salaries, purchasing vehicles, obvious things, which we have misuse of budget processes.
Finishing a
And
football
that is
stadium.
different from running a deficit or surplus budget. So that's the clarification that I thought which needed to make.
Okay, as he prepares himself, George, I'll give you.
Well, you see, the political economy of budgeting. You see, if you're in government, you have an obligation. Sometimes voters, they don't care whether you are having money or not. They want you to deliver on your promise. So you find that most times government is pushed into going into supplementaries in order to implement a specific program. It's also about elections here. And it happens in almost most of the jurisdictions. Even in America, people are borrowing. You will see that somebody has come up with a budget request to Senate because they need to address a specific election matter. So that happens. But the problem here is that it has been consistent. It's not just about an election year, So the indiscipline with which it is being, I think we are not addressing the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is that we are not frugal. And we have not plugged the holes, the leakages in our budgets that allows for a lot of money. The reports are there for us to appreciate. The IGG told you how much money we lose in every financial year. Had we not lost that money to corruption, I don't think we'd be running around
request for supplementary.
Yes. Now, allocation to some of these, you have seen there, Pinetis, what is it called? Lubowa, and so on and so forth. I think that's one of the areas that I mentioned earlier on, that a budget is a policy tool, and we have a budget cycle, and there is a normal budget practice, and a budget is what it is if it is subjected to certain governance procedures, which includes people. So you need to interrogate the budget outcomes before you even subject it to bring a supplementary. That you need to give a compelling case for me to give money to Pineti. Give me a compelling case for this, Atiak, and so on. So there is not sufficient time to interrogate those specific budget items that are brought. It's very limited. So we need to say, okay, Minister of Finance, you are telling us give this. The problem is that when they come with this sense of urgency, and they stampede Parliament into passing it. And then Parliament, because they know it's important that we have Atiak running, because Atiak now is giving employment. There's no doubt about it. Atiak is employing some young people there. And of course, you know that we are moving into manufacturing. The president has said this over and over again, that we need to add value so that we don't begin to sell, to sell jobs outside by importing, So coffee is a good thing. So the principle is good. The question is, why don't we interrogate that we gave you money last financial year, this amount? How have you spent it? What has so far been done? And so on and so to justify you receiving additional financing. But if it is just brought this financial year, we have a supplementary. The same institution can get supplementaries twice in a financial year. Then there is a problem. And also for the case of Atiak, you have seen that the statistics simply don't add up. Yeah, because if government is owning 50% and the private investor is owning 50%, and the private investor is putting in 150 or something $billion, and then government is putting 600 and something $1 billion. So when you look at it in terms of the mathematics, it doesn't add up. If I'm putting 600, that means the private investor should also be putting 600. But if the private investor is stuck at 150 and then government is at 600,
And you should be the majority shareholder.
it becomes difficult for us who are speaking for government to justify it in the public. I mean,
the government is even the surety of the loan that the other
yeah,
person
yeah.
took.
So those are the things that the Awich is talking about here, saying that, you know, we need to have that conversation, yeah, so that we when we go to account to the ordinary citizens, say in Igulu, say now you put 600 billion in Atiak Sugar. Wouldn't the 200 billion be used for doing something else? Maybe complete our airport or do something like that. You see, budget allocation, prioritization. What are our priorities in this financial year? So those are the questions that the people, but ordinarily, it's good to finance those private ventures. Yeah.
Thank you. It's actually about time for us to conclude, and I'll give each of you a minute or so to just wind up. Joseph?
I'll just conclude with, in context, what I want to say, that, and that's important, that budget surplus is merely when income exceeds revenue. And budget deficit is just merely the direct opposite. And number two is my concluding remarks, that in Water One, I think we had twice in 8 years. That's my government. It is the government that delivered what these fellows have failed. Water Two, amidst all the challenges post Idi Amin, I think in 93, so 83 we sort of did it. What is it? It is simple, I think, in part, as all my colleagues are saying, that you plan, just like in our household, this is how much we shall spend, this is how much we expect to generate, this is how much we expect to borrow. You stick to fiscal policy, fiscal discipline, prudency, and you deliver regardless of whatever happened. Now, we did that. Continuously, when you do that, and then this time we got a little bit of an extra, we build a hospital. We get a little bit of an extra, we construct a road. You get a little bit of an extra. You simply say that, okay, next financial year, we shall borrow less. What is actually happening at the moment, continuously, as we continue with this, we continuously borrow. The borrowing pumps a burden on us in terms of paying much more interest to date. We are expanding and continuing to invest on deficits and burdens for the children of our country going forward. It is bad economics. I don't know who teaches. This finance minister, I don't know who teaches the chief executive.
Thank you very much.
My conclusion is that we call on the public to give us a chance to address the irregularities that occurred in Kawempe North, so that doesn't occur again. And also, we call on our own government and our members of parliament to convince the public that supplementary is worth it.
My concluding remarks, and I hope that this will be really the last time we're discussing Kawempe, is that we use Kawempe as a lesson, and so that we can learn from the things that didn't go well in Kawempe, and if at all there are those I'm struggling to see what went well, we can also learn from it, and use the opportunity that court will provide us to adduce as much evidence as possible on either side, so that we can use it to polish our elections. On the side of our budgets, a lot more discipline is required, and I think that discipline is required from both the political and the technical class.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah.
Well, my concluding remark on Kawempe is that if the people who exercised excesses, like deployment of members, a member that passed through a polling station with about 100 guns on it, this kind of impunity can only be dealt with through leadership taking action. It's a failure of leadership. It's a failure of President Museveni, especially to supervise the army that he is required to under the Constitution. 80% of the mess in Kawempe was by the army. So the president shouldn't run away from disciplining or relieving his son of his duties and hide behind the letters to Bazukuru. 20% of the mess was by the inaction of Electoral Commission. Electoral Commission needs to be aware that they owe a duty to citizens to deliver credible, free and fair elections. On budget, supplementary budgets and excesses, I don't know whether the extent we have reached, because now every Ugandan owes 2.3 million in debt. If we are to recover debt money, I hope that by the time NRM leaves power, I hope that every citizen will not be owing like 50 million in public debt. The fiscal indiscipline of NRM, I don't know whether it can be tamed. I don't know. Yeah. So, and it's both events relate to the breakdown of rule of law in the country, unfortunately. So we need to fix it. To say once this is the law, nobody should cross the line.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah. Dr. Ojambo.
Yeah, for me, I just think that President Museveni and people around him should come to reality and use Kawempe to resolve the problem of electioneering in Uganda. This business of every after elections, pronouncements are made and you end on pronouncements, I think is going to only continue the problems. We had pronouncements when we finished the elections in Bukedea. We had pronouncements when we finished the elections in this place in Lango, where Cecilia was. Now we are hearing pronouncements after, angry pronouncements after the loss in Kawempe. We need a very clear policy on how we are going to make our elections free and fair so that the best candidate wins. The supplementary budget is a scam, is a real scam. And to me, I think that scam can only be resolved if we went back to the law. We insist on the law because now we are doing budget, supplementary budgets out of the law. In my institution, a supplementary budget was approved to buy vehicles for some of the governors of the university. And some of us said that this is not correct, but I was shocked it was approved by the Minister of Finance. People are buying vehicles on supplementary budget. So it's a scam, which I think that should just be corrected. If somebody can go to court and stop it, the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much to each one of you for your insights. It's been quite an engaging and illuminating conversation. And thank you very much to you who has been watching us, and we do appreciate you. We've been talking about the plans by the NRM to go to court over the Kawempe North by-election and the supplementary budgets. My name is Judith Atim. This is the Citizens Chat Show. We'll be back next week, same time. Until then, have yourselves a good day.